All right. Well, without further ado, then, it's my pleasure to introduce John Cox to you. Since he's running for office, I'm sure he'll do a much better job introducing himself than I could. I'm definitely hoping that he wins the governorship. And, yep, I guess we'll hear from you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Cooper. Thank you. Thank you, Cooper. Thank you, Neil. And I'm so pleased to be here. I just drove in from Sacramento, where I talked to 125 wonderful pastors from all over the state. And I'm going to ask you to do what I asked them to do in the first few words of my remarks, and that is pray for me, please. I need a lot of prayer. And not only for me, but for my family. I mean, this is a pretty important undertaking that I've mounted here. And I've been doing this now for over a year. And my lovely, wonderful wife, we just celebrated our 16th anniversary. And we have a 13-year-old daughter. Yes, I've been mistaken for the grandfather. And it's very tough on them as more than it is on me, because I'm not home very much. And so please include us in your prayers. I want you to understand why I'm running for governor. I want to give you a little bit of a flavor for my background and my life, and kind of give you the reasons from my heart. I want to open up my heart to you and tell you why. And then we're going to talk a few things about the issues, but I want to leave a good amount of time for questions, because I know you have a lot of questions. I'm not exactly a well-known name. I don't have a reality TV show. I haven't been in the movies, Conan the Barbarian or something like that. But I'm like one of you. I'm a family man. I'm a businessman. I'm a Californian who really is disturbed by the kind of leadership that we've been getting in the state. And the only way to get better leadership is to replace the leadership that we already have, right? We just can't sit, and back and let it happen. I mean, we can pray for better leadership, but I think God gives us the will, right, the free will to do something about this, and that's what we have to exercise. I'm going to start with my background, and my life is really, my start in life is really a very good indication of what my life is about. My mom was a single mom on the south side of Chicago. And the reason that she was a single mom is because my real father walked out on her right after I was born. He didn't take responsibility. And that's why my entire life, it's all been about responsibility in my life. I'm going to try to give you a few highlights, but if you look me up, you will see that time and again in my life, I have taken responsibility for my community. I've taken responsibility for my children. I've taken my responsibility in some respects for the body politic, but it's always about doing for others, because that's the way I feel. Hi, sir. And I want to open that up to you in grand terms, so that you understand my motivations for running. My mom was a Chicago public school teacher, and I witnessed the impact of corruption right up close. Chicago? Anybody here from Chicago, by the way? Oh, a few refugees. And, it's famous, right? Chicago's famous. But, until you really see the pernicious impact of it right up close, the negative impact on lives, you really don't really get a full appreciation. And I saw those kids in the Chicago public school being robbed of an opportunity to be better, to have a better life. And most of the time it was because the rotten principles that my mom had to put up with. And they were friends of the alderman. And that's corruption. And that is pure theft of opportunity and a future. And that really just seared in me the idea that I have to do something about corruption. And that really has been a large part of what I've done in life. So I moved to California about 10 years ago. My mom retired in 1980 to Fresno. Anybody here from Fresno? Oh, there we go. A couple refugees from Fresno. Actually, you don't have to be a refugee from Fresno. It's a wonderful place. I love it. My little brother is still a small businessman there. And so I finally moved out here. My mom's two sisters also lived in California their whole life. My grandparents moved out here in 1968, so they spent the last, or last years of their lives, 50 years ago. So I always joke about the fact that it took me 50 years to save up enough money to buy a house here. And that's really one of the reasons I'm running for governor. And this has to do with our families, too, because the ruling party in Sacramento has really made this state unaffordable for families. And that is horrendous, especially, when we consider our faith life. I believe that faith is all about works to a large extent. I mean, it says it all through the Bible that faith without works is empty, right? And our families are the foundation of our faith life. And what the ruling party in Sacramento is doing is it's making our lives so expensive and so difficult for families. I've talked to so many older people who are having their children move away because they can't afford a house, they can't afford the gasoline, they can't find a decent job that will sustain them. And I've talked to so many families of modest means who tell me that they have to work 2 and 3 jobs in order to be able to afford a decent lifestyle in the state. And that erodes a family. I mean, how can you really devote yourself to your children and to your church and to other aspects of your life when you've got to work so hard in order to get by? And that's a major motivation for me to run for governor. I so appreciate being here as a values group because that's how I've tried to live my life. As you know from the flyer that's in front of you, I'm the only candidate for governor who's been endorsed by the California Pro-Life Council, and I'm proud of that. And it's part of my faith. I'm a Catholic. I'm a conservative Catholic. I was born again on October 1, 1979. And that date is inscribed in my Bible. I was saved by a fellow lawyer named Lou Beland. I always remember Lou. He was a member of the Christian Businessmen's Committee. Anybody member of that group? Yeah, based in Chattanooga. And I'm heading to Chattanooga next week, as a matter of fact. My nephew's getting married there, coincidentally. But Lou met me on a train going into Chicago. I was furiously studying. I was in law school. I was under tremendous stress, and he started talking to me, and he led me to Christ. And that's a major turning point in my life. And I gave my life over to Christ on that train. And I was a very active member of Christian Businessmen's Committee for many, many years after that. And I'm very active. I was very active in my church as well. I was a lector in my church for 22 years. I taught religious education. I taught 6th grade. Any religious education teachers here? Have you ever taught 6th grade? 6th grade I thought was the best because in 6th grade the kids are still afraid of you, but they're old enough that you can have a conversation with them. So I thought it was kind of by the time they got into 8th grade, they weren't afraid of you anymore. So my friends that were teaching in 8th grade had a problem. I was president of my parish school board when I was 27 years old. Back in Chicago, I also started a charity called Rebuilding Together. It was a local affiliate of a major national charity. It repairs the homes of elderly and disabled so that they can live in their homes, low-income people that were being, unable. They were unable because of their income to keep up their home, and we would have a rebuilding day every year. And that really, again, it's all about taking responsibility. I mean, I saw a need in my community, and that group, by the way, 26 years later, is still operating, and we repair 50 homes a year. This year, I'm sorry to say, was the first year that I wasn't able to make it back to participate. And because of the governor's race, my team wouldn't let me go. I had all kinds of events, and I wasn't able to make it back. But I'm going back next year as the governor of California. Yes, yes. And when I moved to California, I've also gotten involved in my community as well as in the public world. I'm on the board of the USO in San Diego, which I consider to be very, very important. Our active duty military. I mean, if we want to know what preserves our freedom, it's our active duty military. And I don't take that for granted one iota. So I'm very involved in helping our active duty military. And I've been very involved in my church. But I'm running for governor because we have to get more people involved in our politics. As I told the pastors this morning, one of my favorite expressions is, "You will be made to care." And that is very true. You will see, and I'm sure you've seen, that the leftists who have control of Sacramento want absolute power over you. And it's not just abortion. It's not just the fact that they push the abortion industry and finance that and love that business. And again, if abortion had been legal in 1955, I might not be standing here before you. So I deserve to be saved. But it's also our homeschooling and our very religious liberties that are at stake. I don't know if you know this. There's a bill that's pending right now, AB 2943, that seeks to ban a therapy. Now, we can have debates about whether some kind of therapy is good or one kind of therapy is bad or good or anything like that. But this is the legislature getting involved to possibly ban pastors and religious from counseling people and in the gay and lesbian community. And, again, you can have opinions one way or the other on that, but what happened to freedom? I mean, freedom, religious freedom, is what this country was based upon. Is this a failing of history teaching in our schools? I mean, Roger Williams, the Huguenots, the people who fled Europe to come to America, came here fleeing repressive governments, right, that restricted their religious freedom. And the First Amendment, is all about speech, but it's all about religion, too. And it's not freedom from religion, it's freedom of religion. And that's a fundamental tenet of our life in America and our success and the tremendous bounties that God has bestowed on us. So I fundamentally am worried about the control in Sacramento of these leftists. And then, of course, the same thing applies to homeschooling and education. I'm a huge fan of school vouchers and homeschooling. One of my first cases when I was a young lawyer was my next-door neighbor who had a child that they wanted to take out of the school and homeschool. And the school district, because it was all about money, wasn't it? It's all about the money. They wanted that child to be in the school. And I fought them every step of the way, and we ultimately forced them to back down. And I was very pleased that we got that result, and now, homeschooling is relatively common. My brother, as a matter of fact, my older brother, my late older brother, had 3 boys. I had 4 girls. He got all the boys. But then he passed. He went to the Lord at age 54 of a brain tumor. So now I have the boys. So I'm taking care of them. As a matter of fact, the oldest one is the one getting married in Chattanooga next week. So I'm not passing that one up. I passed up the charity in April, but I can't pass up my nephew's wedding. I'm going to be there for my nephew's wedding, no matter what. But my brother and my sister-in-law homeschooled all 3 of those boys, and they're wonderful. And I think that was a wonderful thing for them. But now the legislature, because it's all about money, they want to inspect homeschoolers. They want to go into your home because of that problem down in near Murrieta, right? And they want to basically harass homeschoolers, and I think that's wrong. I want to see homeschooling be available. I want to see local control. I want to see all of us in charge of our children's future. I mean, who better than the parents? And that's an essential part of my campaign.